The Caltrain electrification program has been a roaring success. Faster, cleaner, and greener rolling stock is all very exciting to see, but there's something else that Caltrain did during the switch to electric trains. They completely revamped their service patterns. Weekend frequency doubled from hourly to half-hourly, but I think what they did on weekdays is even more interesting, and reflects a clear paradigm shift away from optimizing for commuters and towards a basic level of all-day service spanning every stop on the line. Well, except the ones that don't normally get regular service, but you get the idea. To understand what changed with Caltrain service, let's look at the situation before. On weekdays, northbound service began bright and early at 4:20. Nice. Eventually stabilizing on one local train an hour all day until a little later at night. Southbound service was the same, starting at 4:49. This would be supplemented by not one, not two, but 4 different types of express trains. The L3 and L4 ran during peak hours, each one once an hour, and complemented each other such that all but a couple of regular Caltrain stops were served by one of them. The very busiest ones like Millbrae, Palo Alto, and Mountain View would get both. And on top of all that, there were runs of the so-called Baby Bullet, or B7, a super express train with just 5 to 6 stops between San Jose and San Francisco. So overall, most average stations got 2 trains per hour during peak times, with a few lucky ones getting 3 or 4. For context of travel time between San Francisco and San Jose, the locals took 1 hour and 39 minutes, L3 and L4 each took 1 hour 18, and the Bullet 1 hour 6. The final limited service was the L5, which ran hourly, only off-peak, and until around 9 p.m. This would have 10 stops between the two ends, clocking in at 1 hour and 14 minutes. So in summary, during off-peak hours, half of stations would have 2 trains an hour, and the other half just 1. It may not seem like much, but the L3 and L4 can be rather inefficient. On the one hand, almost everyone gets a fast train into the 2 major cities during peak hours, but on the other hand, if your trip doesn't involve at least one of the very busiest stations, chances are that your only option for a 1-seat ride would be the once an hour local. It's a schedule design that is heavily catered towards commuters, and effectively forces you to either memorize what trains go where, or have to plan every single trip on your phone, rather than just showing up to the station and getting the next train. Of course, a commuter is likely to take the same train every day, so they'll be fine memorizing their trip. But most choice riders who want to go somewhere on a whim don't have that opportunity. There is the argument to be had that express service was needed in the diesel era because of how long those trains took to accelerate and decelerate at stops, so the impact of skipping a few stops was much more pronounced. However, following the move to electric trains, which accelerate much quicker, express service can sometimes be a luxury. It adds another layer of complexity to the rider, complicates operations, and can get in the way of providing a consistent base schedule that can get you anywhere. While having 3 different types of non-local trains during peak hours is understandable, the alternating local and limited during off-peak hours was even weirder. Not only did it leave many stations with just 1 train an hour, but it meant that the interval between the train arrivals was not consistent. Take Palo Alto for example. The northbound limited arrived at 7 past the hour, with the northbound local at 26 past the hour. So you had a 19-minute gap in one end and a 41-minute gap on the other. If you arrive at the station at a random time, you're over twice as likely to fall into an interval where the next train is limited, which is great if you're traveling a long distance or somewhere served by the limited, but pretty bad otherwise. Now most people will not show up at a random time obviously, and instead do some planning ahead, but this is the kind of thing that transit schedulers often have to reason about. Now that we've established what the service was like before, let's talk about how it is now. There are still 4 trains per hour at peak and 2 off-peak, but now there is always a local every 30 minutes, which always shows up at the same 2 minutes of the hour, every hour, both exactly 30 minutes apart. So now if you want to travel at an off-peak time, all you have to do is memorize 4 numbers, 2 for each direction. Or you could just do 1 for each direction and then add 30 to get the other. And just like that, you will be able to go anywhere from your local station, no matter how major or minor that station is. The faster speed of electric trains helps of course, but knowing that the next train at the station will always stop where you want to go makes a big difference. It also helps in timing onward connections to other transit. If you're transferring from Caltrain, which runs every 30 minutes, to something else like a bus that runs every 30 minutes, or even every 15 or 10, then the time that you have to wait won't depend on what train you get. In the past, Millwray was treated as a time point, with all Caltrain arrivals being roughly evenly spaced to ensure consistent connection to BART, at least back when BART ran every 15 minutes. As for Mountain View, with a connection to VTA Light Rail, the arrivals were far more varied, an unavoidable problem when you have so many different types of service to work with. Having that constant all-day pulse, or TACT as it's known, of locals every 30 minutes at the same minutes every hour, with a few limited and express trains sprinkled in for convenience during peak hours, is a much more pleasant experience overall. Looking to the other side of the bay, there's often talk that BART should get express trains, and honestly, I don't see it. Since the majority of BART is interlined, and it's designed to run at a high frequency, with very few opportunities to overtake, express trains would be a logistical nightmare. That said, I think having some early morning express trains to SFO in particular, before regular service begins, would be very handy, especially on weekends. Not to mention, the wide stop spacing, gentle curves, and full grade separation all mean that BART trains already spend a lot of time at top speed, so an express service would not save that much time. Caltrain, meanwhile, just operates one simple corridor with two major centers of mass on either end. And while yes, California High-Speed Rail will eventually share the tracks, having just the one line and some quad-track sections allows for more variation in where trains stop. However, the more types of express service that you run, the higher the confusion factor, which is why I really appreciate the elegance of the limited and express services as they are now. The limited is literally identical to the express north of Redwood City and identical to the local south of it. And even if you disregard that fact, it's still a lot easier to communicate that, say, Menlo Park is served by the local and limited but not the express, rather than saying it's served by the local and some but not all limiteds. You have to check the number to be sure. Heck, rush hour Caltrain operation once looked like this. Now that's what I call commuter rail. Overall, the Caltrain schedule change was a very positive development. While the actual number of trains running each weekday hasn't changed much, the way they've been redistributed shows a movement from just a 9-to-5 commuter and the major employment centers which they occupy. Caltrain has seen their biggest ridership growth in off-peak and weekend travel. In that sense, electrification and the reimagined service patterns couldn't have arrived at a better time. The constant pulse of local trains on a 30-minute clock face, combined with the faster average speeds of EMUs, helps to encourage point-to-point travel all day across the entire network. Though if we wanted this to keep going, California needs our help. Transit funding is on the brink, and if we're not able to rally towards securing that, we could see all sorts of cuts across many of your favorite transit operators. We're talking hourly service on BART, no more expresses on Caltrain, lots of Noonie routes disappearing, you name it. So I've attached some links in the description and the pinned comment for you to make your voice heard. Thank you so much to the Transbay Coalition and other similar advocates for your continuous fighting for Bay Area transit.